Welcome to the first part of this Blender 3D series. So in this first part, we are going to look at how to download and install Blender, which is a free software. We will also look at the overview of the Blender interface. And the last part will be basic navigation tools like how to rotate and move around objects in your Blender window. So fast forward, let's open our web browser and in the search bar type Blender. So Blender is a 3D software, you don't need any crack. So just tap Blender and press on enter. It will open. Then you click on this download icon. So this is the latest version, which is the version 4.3, and I'm currently using the 4.1. So they all have the same interface, so it doesn't matter the version that you are using. And if you are using another version of Windows, you have to come here, then you click on this one. So the first three options are for Windows, and if you come to the bottom here, you will see if you are using a MacBook, there is a version here for you, and those using Linux, your version 2 is here. So just click on it and it will download for you. So after downloading, I already have it, so I'm not going to download it again. So when you click on it, it will automatically download for you. So after downloading, you have to locate your download folder. So this is how the setup look like. It looks like a monitor with a CD on it. So double click on it. Then you just click on next. Next, and the last option will be just install. So that is all. I already have it. That is why it is giving me this option. So after installing it, all you need to do is go to your start button. You will see it somewhere here, or if you are not seeing it, you will type Blender, then it will open for you. So I'm going to open the 4.1, so you can open any version of yours. So this is what you are going to see when you open Blender for the first time. So seeing this startup window, all you need to do is go to general, or you can just click at any empty space, it will vanish. So as usual, you are going to see this cube after opening Blender. So now let's go to our second option for this episode, which is overview of Blender interface. So when you look at the interface, there are so many things, but then we are just going to focus on few of them. If you look at this side, there are some tools here. The first one is the select box, which is actually used to select objects. So if you are a graphic designer that uses Photoshop, you will see it. So it's just like the move tool. So if you want to select something, you just have to click on it, then you will use it to select. So now I can select my cube. It has been highlighted as orange, which means it has been selected. So the second one is for the 3D cursor. So what the 3D cursor basically does is, if I place, let me select the 3D cursor and I click here, I can create objects for it to be at where the 3D cursor is. For instance, if I right click and go to create, let me go to add mesh, then I add, let's say, UV sphere. You see it will appear at where the 3D cursor is. So where the 3D cursor is determines where new object that you are creating should be. And the third one here is move, as the name suggests. If you select an object, you will see there are some arrows here. So the first one is pointing up, which is in the blue color. The second one is green, and the last one is red. So the blue one is the Z axis, which means moving object up and down, and the green one is the Y axis, which means you want to move object left and right, depending on where your camera is positioned. So, and the red is S axis, so you also move it in that direction order. So if I select the move tool and select, those axes will appear. So if I select the blue, which is Z axis, I can move up and down, Y axis, and then the S axis. And the fourth one is the rotate. As the name suggests, you see the same azure, those colors, but this time around it has changed to something like an arc. So if I select the blue one, it will rotate along the Z azure like this. If I select the red one, it will rotate along the Y azure, and the same thing goes for the Y azure. The red is the S azure, and the fifth one is the scale. So if you want to change the size of an object, you come to select the scale, and the shortcut for that is S. So if you look around, if you select the green, which is the Y azure, it will scale along that azure. But let's say you want to scale something uniformly, you have to click on the white button rather, then you scale it. That one, it will scale them uniformly. But if you scale along one azure, it will deform your object. So edit, undo. So I think for now, this is what we need to know about the tools. And when you look at the right here, this is what we call the editor type, the outliner, which is like layers. So you see I have my camera here, the cube that I created. There is a light. The light is somewhere here, and the sphere, the circle that I just created. So in Blender, this is called the outliner. So in Photoshop, it is called layers. And the next thing that we need to know is when you look at the top here, there are some circles here. So let's focus on the first one. So the first one is the viewport shading. So the moment I click on that, all my object change to something like lines. So it's like a skeleton. When I select the second one, which is the viewport shading, this is what I'm going to see. So it's like the clay version without a color. And the third one is the viewport shading. The third one, the viewport shading. So this one actually will give me a color, but it won't give me a shadow. And the last one, which is the render mode. So that one will give me the colors and shadows. So that is basically like how my final work will look like. You get to understand this in the next episode. So now you've talked about the tools, the render windows, the outliner. The next thing that we are going to look at is the timeline. So if you are doing animation, this is where the timelines come in. For instance, if I want to move this object from here to here, I will have to keyframe it using I. You see there is a point here in the timeline, so I have to move 20 frames. Then I will just select my move tool, then I will move it around, then I will give it another keyframe. So you see at frame 0 it will be static, and at frame 20 it will just move. So this is the work of the keyframes, but this is not our main focus here. And there are some options too here. Let's not worry ourselves about that. You'll get to know more about this in the other episode. So this is basically all for today's episode. See you in another episode.